What's up, everyone? Tara Roberts here, and welcome to Dear Miss Fantasy for Week 4. We are the official mailbag show of Player Profiler, and we got questions this week. We got lots of questions because what a week! What a week in fantasy football. It's always wild when you have a guy score a big 40 plus point fantasy performance, but we had four in this week, two from the same team in the same position. Devin A. Keenan Allen, Raheem Mostert, and Devontae Adams. I kid you not, in one league, I played against Raheem Mostert and Keenan Allen, and that team also had Devin A. on the bench. Yeah. I should correct myself. It's apparently Achan, Devon Achan. Sorry, that's gonna take me like the entire season to correct and say right, but I'll get there. And for that team that just beat the living daylight out of me, shout out to John Lobb for absolutely destroying me by 50 points this week. Yeah, that was a humbling experience. We've been rocking and rolling this fantasy season. I've been riding high on several teams with Tyreek, and that one took me out in a way that I was not prepared for. So, if you're watching on the podcast, go to the YouTube and comment. Let me know if you got like mollywopped by literally the same combination, or maybe it was Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams or something crazy. I don't know. Just let me know. Let me know, because I know I'm not alone. I've read the comments everywhere, and you're in pain if you were one of those teams that just got double 40-point hit. There was no way that you could even you didn't have a chance. I don't know what's worse. Is it worse like losing by 1 point and feeling like, okay, man, if I had adjusted something, I could have had this, or losing by 50 to 90 points and being like, there's no theoretical way I could have overcome this, and I just got beat like I stole something. I don't know. Just let me know. Let me know the pain. So yeah, if you were thumped and destroyed by one of those big performers this week, my condolences. I feel your pain. Also, speaking of thumped and destroyed, not just in spirit, my obligatory Clemson plug for the brand, of course. I am reeling from my Tigers absolutely blowing the Florida State game. We won't dive into that because why would we? I'm not gonna exacerbate the pain anymore. So yeah, let's dive into the show. But first of all, can we take a moment to appreciate the thumbnail for the show on YouTube? If you're listening on the podcast, head over to the Player Profile YouTube channel. That is where you will find this show in YouTube form, and take a look at the thumbnail, because whoever did it just literally outdid themselves this week. You know how you'll, when you laugh at something, you'll be like LOL in your head, you'll chuckle a little bit. No, this one made me cackle when I saw Justin Fields' face and the bear emoji. It was perfection. Oh man. All right. We're gonna go over some hot topics, injuries, and then mailbag questions. It's going to be a fantastic show because we've got some good ones. Actually, you know what? We're actually going to start off with a mailbag question. We're going to do things a little bit different today. We're going to start off with a mailbag question because it's my main topic of the week. So, yeah, from B Foxworth 07, what is our panic level on Justin Fields? If we are benching him, who would you pick up? Love, Stroud, Purdy, and Deshaun all available. All right. So this is a big question. It's a question that a lot of fantasy managers are having to face. So let's get this out the way. Yes, you should have to start Justin Fields this week. You have to. It would be criminal to bail out now. We've been doing it. We can't bail out now when he's facing Denver, right? That you have to start him against Denver. But even beyond that, we'll get into the matchup in a second. Looking at the upcoming schedule for the Chicago Bears, Washington is the only issue here. Now, granted, the Bears are massively struggling. It's, even playing against an an amazing matchup, might not yield fantastic results, but considering what we've seen from Denver, you have to. But looking at the rest of the schedule, again, outside of Washington, Minnesota, Las Vegas, LA Chargers. I mean, we can't bail out right now. You can't sell low right now because theoretically, we're going to hit a good spot here in the schedule. But that said, I would stash another quarterback. So, yes, I would pick someone up. I wouldn't bench him this week, but just in case, for some reason, he comes out and gives us 14 fantasy points against Denver, that's our sign that it's a wrap for the season. We have to move on. But we're starting him this week, and you need to pick up somebody right now, just in case. And at the very least, for streaming purposes. And of that list that you gave, people are not gonna like who I'm gonna choose. And it's not a homer pick because I am a Packers fan, but it's Jordan Love. Yeah, I know. People are very skeptical of the production for Jordan Love, but kind of looking at that list, Brock Purdy, and I'll talk about him later because we've got a mailbag question again on that. But Brock Purdy, the floor is fantastic, right? He's solid, but there's not a massive amount of upside. He's a fine streaming option, but he's not somebody that I want to roll out on a weekly basis because QB 12, 13 is kind of his max, right? Then Deshaun Watson. Good sign that he did come out and ball out aside from one horribly embarrassing, shame-worthy pass backwards. Not really sure what was going on there. Kind of reminded me like in high school, you have that like panic in high school. You're playing basketball, right? And you come off the bench. I'm not saying I did this a lot. I'm not saying this was common for me. I won't admit to that either way. But let's say you come off the bench and you're thrown in there randomly and you're not a starter. You barely play. And you get the ball and you panic. And you start dribbling the wrong way and you score on the wrong basket. That was what that play was akin to. But you're a professional football player. That was bad. But it was good to see Deshaun come out and at least do what he should have done against that Tennessee pass defense. That's the barometer right there. And that's kind of what we're looking at with Justin Fields. Like, if you have a top tier matchup, I need you to come out here and at least put up a top tier performance in that matchup. And if you can't, then we know we've got big issues. If you can, then we know, okay, you're not elite right now. You're going to struggle in bad matchups. But at the very least, when you're in an excellent matchup, I can plug you in and feel confident. And sometimes that's all you need. When we're looking at streaming options and playing matchups and whatnot, we just, we need to feel confident that we can roll you out in certain situations. So we need to feel that from Justin Fields, and at least we feel that from Deshaun Watson. CJ Stroud, I do absolutely love. I love what I'm seeing from him. And he's delivering on exactly what he promised, right? He, two Ohio State quarterbacks in extremely opposite directions. Stroud's claim to fame, right, was that the accuracy, the precision, right? The high football IQ. Not that Justin Fields doesn't have that, but just the, pocket passer, all of those things that just came so easy to him. And he's delivering on that. He's delivering on that perfectly in a bad offense. So good for CJ Stroud, he honestly would kind of be the second option on that list. If it's between Love and Stroud for me, because I'm not going to ignore a rookie putting on, granted, he's had favorable matchups, but he plays in a division with quite a few favorable matchups. So this will happen over and over and over again. Houston is actually the only bad passing matchup, so he doesn't have to face himself. So he's got a nice little list of good matchups. So yeah, Stroud would be the one behind it. But with Jordan Love, you got to appreciate the numbers that he's putting up. And I understand that people look at it and feel like it's not repeatable. But bear in mind, this is what he's doing, week one aside. He's done this for the past 2 weeks without Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a benefit to the offense. It flows better with Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon is not that dude. And Jordan Love is putting up top numbers. It's impressive. The weapons are strong. He's able to spread the ball around and trust multiple receivers. He doesn't even have Christian Watson in there yet. This could continue all season long. And while I don't know if he'll continue to play at a top 5 level, QB1 is certainly well within the realm of what he can be. So, yeah, I'll take, the potential, low end QB1 from Jordan Love and stream that with Justin Fields. I like it. But yeah, getting back to Justin Fields, we can dive into what the issue is here with him. I am going to give him one excuse before I criticize him here. Kansas City is not a good defense. It's not a good defense. You will see the over-under for a Kansas City game, and you will get excited. But you shouldn't, because those points will be scored by Kansas City. Those are not the opposing team's points. Those are Kansas City's points. Kansas City's defense is good. It's not a good matchup. So Justin Fields didn't really expect him to come out here thriving. So I'll give him that excuse, I'll give him that excuse for this week. But 11 for 22, 99 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's kind of not excusable. You got to do a little bit better than that, unfortunately, man. It's a problem. If not for that 1 touchdown, we're looking at 7 fantasy points from DJ Moore. The running backs combined for 10 fantasy points. The problem isn't just Justin Fields. The problem is, despite the trade for DJ Moore, despite the investments that they made, free agency ads, draft picks, despite all of that, this team doesn't look like a team that made any progress from last year. They seem like the same exact team with a slightly shinier toy that Justin Fields can't really utilize. Yeah. So it seems like Fields is just kind of on the same track that he was last year, which is good and bad. He struggled early on last year while he was trying to get his feel, right? It was ceiling wasn't super high. Floor was kind of like, Then he kind of hit a stride as things started to, he started to get a little bit used to what he was doing. Then he put up some slightly better numbers. Then he had those 2 mid-season-ish massive performances, the 40-plus point games. And then after that, he kind of, he dipped down into a nice top 10 low-end QB1 level. Like, I think it was maybe averaging 19 fantasy points per game after those 2 boom games, if I recall, which is fine. It's not what you drafted him as. That's the problem, is that I don't think he's going to live up to us drafting him as QB 6. Was around what his ADP was right after Burrow. Unfortunately, it looks like maybe he's just going to repeat that same pattern of last year. And that's a problem for him overall, really. It is a big problem for him overall when you're looking at where he is heading. Now, from redraft, we don't have to bail out again because the better games are coming. Things will improve. And he does have that rushing upside. But from a dynasty perspective, this is highly concerning. When those big boom games come against those bad defenses, when he faces Denver and Minnesota, you need to think about selling. This team feels destined for a high draft pick, and they've already got one in Carolina, really. So, because they've got Carolina's first overall pick. So this is concerning. Justin Fields might not be long for this specific team. Maybe he can be fixed somewhere else with a quarterback or with a coach that knows how to coach a quarterback like him, right? How to coach up his passing skills, because they existed at Ohio State when he was surrounded by ample talent. So that it's there. You can make it happen. You just gotta be able to tweak it and make it right for him. So I don't know if that's going to be this season, unfortunately. So yes, we're starting him in this bad matchup. We're starting him in a few more matchups, and you're getting a streaming option because this is a problem. Before I dive into the game again, well, no, we'll go ahead and dive into the game. Denver versus Chicago real quick. Because I feel like I've spent a lot of time on this subject, but it's a big main topic because it's a big concern for everyone. It's a big concern that we're getting such poor production. I mean, you can look at Joe Burrow and you can say we're getting poor production from a guy we drafted at QB5, but you can put an excuse to it, right? You can say, okay, there's the issue of the injury. He's struggling to play through it. There's, that problem going on. Excuse my voice. You can put an excuse to it and say that there will be a bounce back at some point. But you can't really put a logical excuse to Justin Fields is the problem. So diving into this Denver Chicago game, this will either be a fantasy bonanza between two bad teams that can't stop each other, or this will be a complete disaster. It's not going to fall in between. It's going to be one or the other. The Denver defense is special in the wrong kind of way. It started off, so week one, it started off okay, but the telltale signs were there, right? They were playing Vegas. Jimmy G had a fairly efficient game. I think he was like 20 of 26. Don't quote me on that. I don't have it in front of me, but it was something like that. He had 2 touchdowns. He looked all right. They beat Denver. And then week 2, Sam Howell went off on them. 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. And not just Sam Howell, right? Brian Robinson, too. Brian Robinson had 18 carries for 87 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 42 yards, and he was the overall RB1 that week. So this performance from the Miami Dolphins is not shocking. I mean, it's shocking, right? Because no NFL team should ever be lit up that way. That's embarrassing. But they already gave up 1 RB1 game to Brian Robinson in what is technically not a really good. It's okay. Hey, it's improved. There, I've seen the improvements in the Washington offense, but it's still the Washington offense with a first-year quarterback who is going through some ups and downs and struggles. We just saw him against Buffalo, 170 yards, 4 interceptions, right? Comparatively, how bad is that Denver defense if they let a man that just got intercepted 4 times have a fantastic game against them? It's bad. So kind of flipping on the other side, Chicago defensively has struggled as well. So when we're looking at these players, again, we're rolling out Justin Fields. We have to. And DJ Moore. We have to. We have to, given the matchup. And while we don't feel confident in Khalil Herbert or Rashawn Johnson right now, you got to view them as flex options given the way that this defense has been absolutely lit up. For Denver, the receivers are all flex options. They're all usable. The backfield, though. Sean McVay's choices with this backfield are just awful. Inexplicably bad. Javonte is getting the bulk-ish of the workload. He looks okay. P. Ryan's role has been reducing week over week, but somehow that's not actually increasing the role for Javonte. I don't know how that math works. We're reducing P. Ryan, but we're not increasing Javonte. And for some reason, he keeps putting Jaleel McLaughlin in at the goal line. I don't know. Not to defend Nathaniel Hackett in any way, because I would never. But Sean, you've got a lot of explaining to do. Because Nathaniel Hackett never let anyone score 70 points on them. So that's a problem. You got some explaining to do, man. Oh. And we'll move on to happier notes. But before we do that, we'll hear a word from our sponsors.
Hey, we're all starting new fantasy leagues all the time. And more often than not, where do we start our fantasy leagues at PlayerProfiler? On Sleeper. Because it's the best. You can imagine my excitement when I saw Sleeper rolled out. Sleeper picks, baby. And game stacking is the path to positive returns with these pick'em games. Find that sneaky shootout and set most of the players to go over their projection for that week. Or you find a game going to get dragged into the mud and take every member of the passing game for less than their projections that week. And if you pick up to 8, that's how you 100x your payout on Sleeper. It's called the Hail Mary. So if you use promo code Underworld, you get a $100 instant deposit match. Check out Sleeper's terms and conditions for details. These Sleeper picks are live in over 25 states. Yeah, buddy.
All right, diving back into. We'll only do one more hot topic because I think I spent like way too long talking about Chicago, but it is the hottest topic that we have. And we'll talk quickly about a more pleasant topic. So going away from Denver, let's talk about the team that just beat the absolute. I don't know. I don't know if I've established if I cuss on this podcast yet, but just beat the hell out of them in a wild way. Devon Achane. I said it right this time. 18 carries, 203 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 receptions, 30 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, 13 carries, 82 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 7 receptions, 70 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Tua, 4 touchdowns. He only threw 23 passes. I'm not super good at math anymore. I was in school, but it's been a long time since I took a math class. But I think that rate is like kind of good. 4 touchdowns, 23 passes. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 11 targets, 157 yards, 1 touchdown. Whew. This is not a the Miami offense, man. I mean, it just feels like if you stacked Tua with Tyreek, and maybe you'll get the Jalen Waddle effect when he comes back from the concussion. But I mean, just unreal. I have some best ball teams where I invested in Raheem Mostert, and I didn't think that much would amount. I didn't think this much would amount to it. Absolutely insane. Now, this is not a waiver wire show or Fab Talk, because by the time you hear this on YouTube or on the podcast, your waiver wires will have passed. So that will not be relevant. But let's talk real quick about if we are trusting Achane. We are. Because here's the thing. Even if, so Raheem Mostert, this is not a takeover, right? Raheem Mostert is still the RB1 of that offense, because it's not like Achane came out and had a incredible game and just outperformed. This is not an exacerbated version of Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, right? Where it's like, oh, he's so much better. He's going to take over. He's going to take no, not the case. Raheem Mostert obviously looked amazing. But what this is that Mostert has been getting the vast majority of the carries because he has been the only healthy back. Jeff Wilson, IR, Savon Ahmed got that groin injury when he, started to contribute a little bit. Was looking good. And then Achane started off with a injury as well. So really, he's been operating as the main lead only back. But we know that this team wants to operate in a committee, right? We know that that's the offense that Mike McDaniel wants to run. But here's the thing. Given the context of this offense, this is not a committee in Denver. This is not a committee in Chicago where we're looking at it and we're like, ugh, we're lucky if we get to 10 fantasy points, and we're probably not going to from one of the backs, even the lead back. This is different. This is an offense that is unreal right now. Provided, health, cross our fingers health-wise, it is unreal. They're a juggernaut. Absolute juggernaut. So even if this committee is a 60-40 split in favor of Raheem Mostert, the 40% snap count being in Devon Achane, I'm still okay with that. I mean, we're talking about, because here's the thing about, we have a good reference point of Miami playing against Denver, or Miami playing against New England. Tough defense, right? That's not a good defensive matchup. And it was not a good game, specifically from, Tua got 12-ish fantasy points. It was not a fantastic performance from him because, knock to Tua, New England is a strong defensive matchup. But even in a strong defensive matchup, Raheem Mostert still had 25 fantasy points because no one is going to look at this Miami team and say, we got to stop the run, make Tua beat us. They're not saying that. They got to stop Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle first. You got to stop that first. So the run game benefits even in these bad matchups because they're not the primary stopping point. No one is trying to attack the run. They're not trying to stack the box. They're not trying to focus on that. So given the context of this offense, how defenses want to attack it, I still think that, even in a committee, Raheem Mostert still has RB1 upside and Devin Achane still has RB2 upside. He'll be a strong weekly flex option. Granted, they're not facing Denver every single week, but even in these bad matchups, we'll still have good performances from the run game. So yeah, I mean, this is a good situation. We are trusting Achane. And I know some people are worried about Jeff Wilson coming off IR. Worrying about Jeff Wilson coming off IR is kind of akin to worrying about Dalvin Cook limiting Brees Hall. And that almost feels like an insult to Dalvin Cook, really, comparatively to Jeff Wilson. I don't believe, even when we're looking at this offense, Raheem Mostert is the better back than Jeff Wilson. And Devin Achane is the better back than Jeff Wilson. I'll say it. I don't believe he will come off IR and reduce the workload for either of these two backs. It's working. Why would they throw in and I don't see it happening. He could come in and be productive and contribute, but I do not see him coming in and them saying, okay, we got to bench Achane. We just got to make sure that Jeff Wilson is rolling and he's going to be our RB1. That's not, no. So we're rolling. We're moving forward. By the way, guys, the Player Profiler all-in package, you got to go get it. It's been lowered to $85 through the end of October. And the all-in package gets subscribers, access to all of our player rankings, Dynasty rankings, DFS, Dominator, data analysis. They will get the world famous draft kit when it drops in the off season. So all this football that we're talking about, you listen to the podcast, you get the information, but getting the all-in package too is going to help you make all of those decisions in terms of what you're doing with a Justin Fields. How are you approaching your start sets because you're getting the rankings? What are we doing in terms of those high value players, those high upside players in DFS? So this is something that you got to get. Fantasy football and data is fun. So take advantage of the lower rate at $85 through the end of October. Now, heading over to some big injury news. We'll cover that real quick over here because luckily, well, I won't say luckily. We'll start off with the big one. Let's start off with the wide receivers and we'll start off with the big one. Mike Williams, every single week it's an ACL. Somewhere it's an ACL. It's just, it's depressing. Mike Williams done for the year ACL. So we got to talk about Josh Palmer versus Quentin Johnston. And oddly enough, it's not oddly enough because people get rookie fever and whatnot, but Quentin Johnston is the higher roster player between him and Josh Palmer, despite the fact that Josh Palmer is the one that is playing above him, right? Josh Palmer is has been the wide receiver 3 in this offense. Quentin Johnston is the one that hasn't been getting any usage at all. Now, you could comparatively look at it and say, well, hey, KJ Osborne was playing in front of Jordan Addison, but we're not wanting to roster KJ Osborne. We want to roster Jordan Addison, right? The upside is there and he'll take over as the year goes on. Yeah. Yes. But Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston are two very different players. Very different situation. I don't know. Given what has happened, I do want to roster Quentin Johnston because now he has wide receiver 3 in that offense attached to Justin Herbert, who I truly think is going to have, rival his big career here where he was the QB2 finish. He could rival that. Yeah, I think it's, we're on a path for that happening. So you do want to roster him. but I do still prefer Josh Palmer. Head over to my Twitter and look at it's for the brand, man. Look at my pinned tweet. It's a joke, but it did happen, right? Josh Palmer was someone who I was on all last season as one of my favorite late run. I rostered him literally on a good 70% of my teams because it was just a fantastic opportunity for him to be such a, essentially free at the end of drafts. And the upside of him potentially stepping into a role if Keenan Allen or Mike Williams got hurt, and he could step in and be QB1 or wide receiver 1 for Justin Fields or Justin Herbert. Get my Justin's confused. Wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert. And it panned out as a very good strategy because he was very effective. And had some fantastic weeks and he was a strong replacement. So I look at him and I still view him as that guy that can still do that. Quentin Johnston still feels like he needs time to develop. So I still lean towards the Josh Palmer side. And yeah, tag this or clip this or whatever for the Podfather because he'll, tag me as number 1 employee for for downgrading Quentin Johnston. Let me not make myself laugh on this one. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. So we're not, we're preferring Josh Palmer over Quentin Johnston. I'm sticking to it for the brand, Okay. Not just the player profiler brand, my brand too, right? I'm pro Josh Palmer. All right. But that was the only big one, really. That was the only major one. Now we just got guys that we're hoping are coming back. Waddle with a concussion, Christian Watson with his hamstring. Will that happen? I don't know, man. We just got to follow and hope. It's a Thursday night game. Cross our fingers. Jonathan Mingo concussion, and I hated that because I did call the Andy Dalton surge. Yeah. Because first of all, it was a good matchup. Just like it was a really good matchup. And did call that he would come in, light up that Seattle secondary, and the wide receivers would benefit. And I was hoping it was going to be Jonathan Mingo, but he got that concussion, unfortunately, and it didn't work out. But did work out for Adam Thielen, so that was awesome. Something to keep in mind in case we are without Bryce Young again this week, because it is another good matchup. We could have Andy Dalton repeat, or it's Andy Dalton, just be cautious on that one. I called it this week, but I got to think long and hard about if I'm calling it this week. Last week, yeah, we got to think about this week. Rashad Bateman, hamstring, cut him outside of deep leagues. Like I've got a deep league where he's in. I'll hold him there, but he's not the wide receiver 1, and he's not going to be. It's Zay Flowers. Then you got to also deal with Mark Andrews. There's no reality in which Bateman, unfortunately, has a ton of upside. So we're moving on from him. Running backs, we've got existing injuries to monitor. So we've got Saquon Barkley and his ankle. You could actually use Matt Breida this week. I know, sounds crazy, but he saw the vast majority of snaps. Matchup is better. So usable asset this week. David Montgomery, thigh. Obviously, if he doesn't play, Gibbs' performance was disappointing from a fantasy perspective, but it was good to see that they let him operate as a lead back. It was just a weird game where I feel like defensively they chose to, because it wasn't like the receptions went to another back. Correct? It didn't go, the receptions that were previously going to Gibbs didn't go to Craig Reynolds. They didn't go to Zonovan Knight. So it seems like just strategically, they just decided to not utilize the running backs as pass catchers in this matchup. So it's a little weird. Big game from Sam Laporta. Good for him. Shout out. So yeah, if Montgomery's out, we can still use Gibbs. Go back to him. Austin Eckler ankle. Again, hopefully we can get him back. I don't know. A lot of people are calling that maybe it's going to be one more week or technically 2 weeks coming up that he'll be out. But he made his point, obviously, because Joshua Kelly has not showcased well. So I think Austin Eckler kind of made his point on this one. And I think, honestly, that's what he's been doing. making his point and resting up and not coming out and injuring himself further, causing any further damage. So he'll come back when he's fully ready and he'll dominate. And he's proved his point that he is he's worth the money for he's worth the money. Aaron Jones hamstring again, kind of same deal. We're hoping that he's coming back. Gotta monitor it. Thursday night game. If he's back, I will play him. No doubt. I don't like when we're talking about Christian Watson, more than likely I won't be playing Christian Watson coming off that hamstring injury because wide receivers off of hamstring injuries just make me uncomfortable. Running backs off of hamstring injuries, not as uncomfortable, especially with the fact that AJ Dillon has proven that he is not that dude. So yeah, even bad matchup, we'll still roll out Aaron Jones. If he's out, I don't want to roll out AJ Dillon. Don't want to do it. Gus Edwards and concussion protocol is the other one. It's Melvin Gordon time. Yeah. Kenyon Drake was the one that fumbled, and Melvin Gordon was the one that dominated after Gus Edwards went out. So hey, if you're desperate, throw it up. It's not a great matchup versus Cleveland, whose defense has proven to be extremely good. But the receiving upside is there for Melvin Gordon. And if Gus Edwards is out, he would likely operate as the primary back. So you can go there if you want to. Quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson, got to monitor that concussion. His absence. I mean, Gardner Minshew filled in fine in terms of the keeping up the fantasy performance for Zach Moss. He still did well. Michael Pittman still, solid game. Targets didn't really waver. Still double-digit targets. Love Michael Pittman Jr. I know everyone is so like, he's just a guy. I love Michael Pittman Jr. He's given me exactly what I was looking for. Patrick Mahomes' ankle doesn't seem like a big issue. Derek Carr's shoulder issue. More than likely, we're getting Jameis Winston. So we get Jameis Winston and Alvin Kamara back in the same game. Oh, this is going to be fun. Then Jimmy G concussion, but that really shouldn't affect your view of the Raiders that much, to be honest. All right. I'm just going to list my players of the week because I've gone way too long and we need to talk about the mailbag questions because this is the mailbag show, but I have not done. We did one mailbag question. So to be fair, you know what? I covered one mailbag question in Justin Fields. So, okay. I'll give myself a break on that one. But my players of the week, Tank Dell. Go, little man, go. I'm so happy for Tank Dell. I talked about him last week. And, the investment that I made in him. And I think it's real, people. I think it's real. It's real, people. Yeah. Make sure that you are, if, again, not a waivers thing, but if for some reason there's not a waiver claim on him in your league, there should be. He should be one of the top waiver claims behind, obviously, Devin Achan. But yeah, Tank Dell, fantastic. I feel like it feels like he's a solid flex at the least moving forward. Obviously, Jerome Ford with the solid game against Tennessee. That was good to see. He didn't come out late enough, on the ground wasn't super effective, but you can't be. But he got the fantasy points and was productive. Cleveland got the win. The offense flowed well. So I feel like he earned and shall retain his RB1 spot. Good to go. We rolled him out. We will roll him out this week. Shout out to the Cardinals, by the way. Joshua Dobbs, Marquise Brown, James Conner. Yeah, all looking solid. Good for Dobbs. Good for Dobbs coming through with the strong games. Marquise Brown performing at a much higher level than anticipated. James Conner performing at the level I anticipated. One of my favorite players to draft this year. And then last player of the week, Sam Laporta. Have yourself a day, Sam Laporta. I mean, just look. I am so frustrated with the lack of shares that I have on Sam Laporta because it's real. And of all the rookie tight ends, he was the clear one that I thought would have the ability to make a strong impact early on. And we're seeing it. So good for him. Good for him. All right, let's move on to the remainder of the mailbag questions on the show. By the way, guys, you gotta check out, before we dive into this, you gotta check out the Player Profiler tailgate. before the Thursday night game. It's a fantastic show with Bradley Stalder hosting, and there's no better way to start off the official, first game of the week in Thursday than with that show. It's a fantastic pregame show. Get you ready for the Thursday night matchup. He covers the game, answers your questions, and maybe you're like me. I'm not saying you are, but maybe you're like me. And when it comes to like doing your showdowns, your Thursday showdown DFS, you're waiting to the last minute. You're it's the perfect show to get that last minute info to help you tweak your lineups as well. So just make sure you tune in this Thursday. Don't miss it. Right before the Thursday night show on the Player Profiler YouTube channel, or for the Thursday night game on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. All right, let us dive into some mailbag questions to close out the show. Because again, we are the official mailbag show of the Player Profiler Network. Question from @James_Bison. What are your top, I should have saved this one for last. What are your top buy low and sell high players going into week 4? My buy low players, I got a ton, but I will do 2. Aaron Jones. We talked earlier about him when we covered the injury. I know that buying an injured player doesn't feel fun sometimes, and quite frankly, he might not be back this week. We're optimistic. We don't know for sure. But he is the RB1 of that offense. And what makes me want to lean into Aaron Jones, aside from the fact that he's just so steady as the RB1 in that offense, and he's been one of the more steady producers over the past. I mean, just look at his record over the past several years. More than several years, really. He has been an RB1 for multiple years now in the most steady way possible. Without A.J. Dillon, he was producing at a top 3 level. Then they added A.J. Dillon in. He was taking the, goal line carries and whatnot. And, that happened and split backfield and taking some really dumb work, but he still was finishing as a low-end RB1. So he is one of the safest options, obviously. Injuries are, never fun. But in terms of the production that he puts out, what a fantastic player, really. And what I think is going to happen and why I'm particularly interested in buying low on him is A.J. Dillon just looks bad in a way that he's never really ever looked incredible, but he looks bad in a way that makes me feel like some of those goal line touches, those goal line touches that have tilted so aggressively his way, those may be going back towards Aaron Jones because he's just been wildly ineffective. And we know that Aaron Jones can do it. So I think there might be some more upside in there. I think he could maybe average out for the remainder of the season a little bit higher than we expect. So, and it's a good situation again with this Packers offense. So I lean that direction. Aaron Jones for sure. And then Derrick Henry is a buy low candidate for me. I know that people are just in a tizzy over over Derrick Henry. And I fully get it. I understand the frustration and why you were terrified. The production has been awful. Tajay Spears has outsnapped him in 2 of the 3 games this season, and it has been concerning. But I don't think it's that Derrick Henry has lost a step. I don't think that is the issue here. I think it's that the Titans offense is just flat out awful. And you might be wondering, why would I want to invest in an RB1 on a team that is flat out awful? Because the problem is, it's a bad line. Tannehill is struggling. The defense can't stop anyone. So it puts the team in a terrible position to where they can't focus on the run. But the thing is that I don't think that Tajay Spears is a risk to overtake the role for Derrick Henry. I know that it feels like, because we're getting Jalen Moore and PTSD with Najee Harris, but that is not the direction that I think this is heading. I think he's just a nice change of pace back and an excellent high-end handcuff if something were to happen. But I do think that as the Titans get into more competitive games, things will improve. And you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait because the next few matchups over the next couple of weeks are concerning. I would not expect, so even maybe even give it another week. I do not expect, like, Cincinnati is coming up. I don't expect him to have a strong performance against Cincinnati. Then you have Indianapolis. Indianapolis, that will be a competitive game, so at least there's that. But they have been strong against the run. And then they have Baltimore, which really could go either way, but it could get out of hand. It could get out of hand if their defense just can't stop Lamar. But after the Titans bye week, things get so much better. So we're still going to go through a rough spot here from a fantasy perspective with Derrick Henry, but things get a lot better. So if you can buy him on the cheap right now and just deal with it, and not rely on him as an RB1. So to acquire him, but don't acquire him as a guy that you want to rely on as an RB1. If you can do that, and if you can wait to utilize him for when things get much better, much, much, much better after the bye week. Derrick Henry's playoff schedule is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. He faces Houston, Seattle, and Houston. Unless you were lining up and saying you're facing Denver, it doesn't get much better than that in terms of a playoff schedule. So relax right now, keep your expectations in check, but acquire him, deal with it for a second, and then I really think that the benefits are going to come through later when they get into those much better matchups. And then some sell highs real quick. Brock Purdy is one that I think you can sell high right now. Provided you're in a decent sized league, you're rostering him as a QB2 option. He's a fine streaming option. He's got a good floor. He's coming off a strong game, but there's not a ton of upside. And we've got people that are straight panicking over some quarterbacks. Justin Fields, we've talked about. Trevor Lawrence is another one people are panicking over. Deshaun Watson turned around and had a good game, but that could easily flip around in a bad matchup. So there are situations where you can take advantage of this panic that people are having around certain quarterbacks and sell Brock Purdy as your QB2 and invest in another position. Won't be a super high sell, but you can get something with a little promise. So that's another one. And then my other one, my running back, sell high, Alexander Mattison. This week was a good performance. I don't buy into it as a continuation. I don't think it's something that we're going to keep seeing. So if you have somebody that's willing to bite right now, coming off that performance, I would bite. Because visually, he didn't really look that good. I don't think there was a big improvement. It was just an excellent matchup. Next question from @follow Rob Thomas. And do follow him, by the way, on Twitter. Literally, the ad is follow Rob Thomas because he's very active. He does a lot of fantastic retweets, specifically for one company that I work for as well. So yeah, it's a lot of good content that will be coming out of there. But his question, Josh Jacobs, what's going on? And it was with an emoji because I pulled the questions from Twitter. So it was with a big, like, what's going on? GIF. So yeah, what's going on with Josh Jacobs? The Raiders are bad. They're bad. But that's not shocking. I mean, it's Josh McDaniels. I don't expect a Josh McDaniels coach team to do well. I didn't think he was turning this around. I don't care who's at quarterback. I don't believe in Josh McDaniels as a head coach. And that's really the issue. But we're staying strong. We are. We talked about it last week. So I won't dive into it super deep, but we stay strong with 3 down backs. I know it is frustrating. I know it's frustrating. And I know I referenced the start that he got off to last year. He had 3 rough starts before really hitting his stride. So it could happen again. Crossing our fingers. I thought it was going to be this matchup right here that was the one where he really had a nice breakout. Unfortunately, it was not. but it could come. It could come. We're standing pat, and I feel you. I don't have any redraft shares, but he is the RB1 of my favorite Dynasty team, and I would just really appreciate it if he just pulled through a little bit more, just a little. I'm not asking like for a ton. Just give me a little bit more. But here's the thing. The snaps have been strong. 70 to 80%. He had like 82% this week. He has a very strong opportunity and workload. It just hasn't translated to fantasy production this season. He's even getting good targets. He just can't make anything of it right now. It's just kind of a weird situation where it's not adding up. But again, the matchups get better. The matchups are getting better down the line. And most important, he's got a good strength of schedule for running back. Most importantly, though, the matchups get better for Jimmy G or whoever is at quarterback. The third best QB strength of schedule. That benefits Josh Jacobs. The team overall is the issue. The team needs to perform better. The team needs to be stronger. If it is easier for Jimmy G, it will be easier for Josh Jacobs. So that's really the issue here. I know people are concerned the workload from last year and, saying, he's just wasn't going to have a good performance coming off of that. But the opportunity is there for him. The team as a whole is just holding him back. I'm optimistic that while the team won't get massively better, there are better opportunities coming forward. Question from @SSanders408. And I like this question a ton. We'll dive through it for your reference. So it's a trade question. Which trade package would you do for CeeDee Lamb? Package 1, Devonta Smith and Miles Sanders. Package 2, Mike Evans and Joe Mixon. Package 3, Jalen Waddle and James Conner. So here's the key for us to really understand how to answer this question. So Sanders needs help at running back. They've got Pierce, Breida, and Akers. And at receiver, they've got Diggs, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, and Jordan Mattison. So stacked at receiver, right? Absolutely stacked. You can afford to sell one of these players. So selling high on CeeDee Lamb when you have Diggs and Keenan Allen, I think that makes sense. It's got to be Diggs or CeeDee Lamb that you're selling because there's the stigma with Keenan Allen, and I do not attach that stigma to him because I love Mason Keenan Allen and one of my favorite players to draft this year. But the stigma of his age and injury concerns coming off of last year in particular just makes it hard to sell him at the peak value that he is worth. He is worth gold, but no one's going to give it to you. So selling CeeDee Lamb makes sense. So looking at that package, we're going to nix the first one right off the bat of Devonta Smith and Miles Sanders because Miles Sanders does not move the needle enough in this trade for what you're getting. You're okay. Devonta Smith, you're getting Devonta Smith, fantastic. But acquiring Miles Sanders, I don't really feel like you added somebody. And he's coming off a good-ish game. But the problem is he's just not truly being utilized as a 3-down back. And the offense is terrible. And the performance that he put up in an ideal matchup wasn't fantastic. It wasn't what we would genuinely expect out of a best case scenario performance. So I'm nixing that one right off the bat. Then we're talking Mike Evans and Joe Mixon versus Jalen Waddle and James Conner. And I hate to say this because I by far prefer James Conner to Joe Mixon. I will not acquiesce on that. If you follow me in any way, shape, or form, and I hope that you do if you're listening, y'all know I've had my concerns about Joe Mixon. And I would prefer to roster. If I start on a weekly basis, who do I prefer to start? Who do I want on my fantasy team? I prefer James Conner. But that said, the gap between Mixon and James Conner is not so great that I want to miss out on that Mike Evans versus Jalen Waddle. I would rather have Mike Evans. I don't hate the Waddle-Conner combination, but I will do the Mike Evans-Joe Mixon combination because, again, a lot of the concerns I had around Mixon were efficiency. And he's showing, good game, but not fantastic still this week. The efficiency has been an issue. But regardless of the efficiency being an issue, it doesn't appear like they're pivoting away from it at all. I thought they might, but I guess none of the backs that are behind him are really inspirational in any way, shape, or form. So it doesn't matter, apparently, how inefficient Mixon is. They're just going to keep rolling him out. So at the very least, again, similar to the Josh Jacobs situation, we're talking about a safe 3-down back. The workload is his. The snap count is his. He's got the receiving upside. So he's got everything that you want. Even though I prefer James Conner, Mixon is very stable. So if I could get Mixon, if I could trade CeeDee Lamb, get Mike Evans as compensation, and get Mixon as my RB1 when I've got this ragtag group of our running backs, I think that is the way to go. The running back room is looking a lot better with Joe Mixon as your RB1 and Dameon Pierce as your RB2. And you still got Mike Evans. And here's the thing. You can still flip Mike Evans. This week might be a little concerning, but I think Mike Evans is still going to be Mike Evans throughout the entire season. You can flip him at some point too and still get another running back. So Evans is more flippable in my opinion. So I lean that direction. All right, next question. Next question from at EFN57. Why was Prince so prolific? I made 8,000 plus songs in the vault. Really? So, guys, when you submit your mailbag questions, feel free to submit like whatever. This is my show. I don't have any restrictions. If we want to talk anything that is not football related, we can talk non-football related stuff if you want to. If we want to, like it can be AMA, ask me anything. It doesn't have to be like exclusive start sits and trades. But to answer the question, so thank you for submitting this. I like fun questions. Answer the question, it's the vibe, right? He was so prolific because of the vibe. It was so different, so bold. Yeah. I mean, just the presence that he had, the way he stood out among everybody else in the industry. That's why he was so prolific. I mean, the songs obviously were fantastic, but when you put the whole vibe with it, when you've got a vibe so strong that Dave Chappelle years later is making sketch comedy skits about you are that dude. So that is it. It is the vibe. I used to love those Dave Chappelle comedy skits with Prince and Charlie Murphy. Those were so funny. All right. Next question. This is our last question from at Illini Parent, half PPR, really hurting at running back with Barkley out. Hall ineffective. Joshua Kelly. This is a long show. I'm sorry I ran so long. Joshua Kelly cost me 2 games. Picked up Swift and can get Zeke. I have Brown, Metcalf, Flowers, Pickens at wide receiver. Would you trade Michael Thomas for Mattison? So looking at the running backs real quick. Well, so first of all, actually right off the bat, Michael Thomas for Mattison is a fair trade. That's a fair trade. But I would not do it because I don't think that it's going to move the needle for you in the way that you want it to. So Barkley and Hall have left you out in the cold, and they have cost you dramatically. Good news is you picked up Swift, and I think that he can retain that RB1 role moving forward. I mean, he's looked fantastic. So as long as he's healthy, I think that he will thrive behind that Philadelphia offensive line. And the thing about Breece Hall is that the upcoming schedule is really good. The team is not good, but the upcoming schedule is really good for running backs. So it's kind of interesting. But the problem is that Saquon's upcoming schedule, it's not so good. He's got one of the most difficult schedules for a running back to face. Like, quite frankly, the Giants have an extremely difficult schedule, and they might just continue to struggle. So I do get wanting to invest in another running back, like just in case, especially because even though you can get Zeke, that's not going to do anything really for you. But again, the Michael Thomas for Mattison, it just doesn't do much for me, and I don't think it does much for you. What I think you can do is that if you want to, I mean, you're solid at wide receiver with Brown, Metcalf, and Flowers. If you want to keep Michael Thomas for your bench and sell George Pickens and really upgrade at running back, I think you could do that. And then maybe turn around and flip Swift or Brees Hall if you want to for a big upgrade at wide receiver. I think Pickens is the one that you can capitalize on right now because sentiment around him is very positive. People trust him. He doesn't have that negative stigma that Michael Thomas has around him. You can get somebody a lot better at running back for George Pickens. So that's the one that I would shop out there and get something better because I just don't see a ton of upside for Alexander Mattison. I don't trust it. Unfortunately, the stat line again was fine from last week, but visually, I just don't. I can't get there with him. I don't see a ton of upside. That's not even a Cam Akers thing. It's just a Alexander Mattison thing. All right, that is it. That wraps up the mailbag show. Again, if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. Tag me. I will respond and do my best to respond. And I will also, if you want me to do the questions on here, let me know. Always up for a good mailbag. If you are listening to this podcast on the podcast version, please subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, drop me a comment, and make sure that you are subscribed to Player Profiler's YouTube channel as well. And that wraps things up. That is it. That is it for our show. We will be back again next week. Good luck with your fantasy lineups this week. I hope you all win, unless you are listening and you're in the league with me. Then I hope you lose. Sorry. Hope you lose to me. Other than that, I hope you thrive. All right, guys. I will catch you later next week.